So far, I've been having a great time with set 11. It is truly shaping up to not only be one of the most fun, but also one of the most complex sets that Riot has ever put out. There is a sheer endless amount of mechanics that you as the player can utilize to differentiate yourself from your opponents. Let's take a first dive into min-maxing set 11 and push the game to its limit.
Let's tear it all down!
Boils the blood.
They cannot go unpunished.
Leave everything to my imagination.
The first mechanic I want to show off is the Golden Remover. This new consumable is joining with set 11 and can either be obtained with the help of an augment or through an encounter. It is effectively the same as a normal magnetic remover, but it has one key difference. You can use it an infinite amount of times. This opens up a whole new door for different strategies. For example, the absolute classic is to combine it with support items like Zephyr or Shroud and then remove the item every single round. You set up your units beforehand against your opponents to make sure that there is an item slot free for important hexes and then snipe the enemy team to give yourself an advantage at the start of the fight. But this is fairly basic stuff and it requires a support item, which isn't something that you can guarantee. However, something you can do is to prioritize items like Edge of Night or Quicksilver and place them reactionary during the combat. Some units like Lissandra have a very strong single target burst and you can simply use Edge of Night to save the unit that she's targeting during combat. This can be useful because sometimes Edge of Night can proc due to AoE damage and then the effect ends up being quite wasted. With the Golden Remover, you can ensure that the effect will always have great value. The same applies for Quicksilver. The CC immunity for Quicksilver only starts when you place the item. If a unit has QSS at the start, then this can lead to a scenario where the immunity on your carry is wasted at the beginning because nobody's casting yet. With a reactionary QSS slam, you can ensure that your carry is immune to CC only when it matters. You can also use the remover to maximize your mana items. Back in set 9, I showcased a strategy based around Ahri where you wanted to slam a specific mana item after her first cast because otherwise the starting mana from the Ionia trait would be wasted. The same concept can be used in set 11 as well, for example if you have items like Blue Buff and Archangel on low mana units like Kog'Maw or Syndra. This way you can crank out more casts at the start of the fight, which can be useful for these types of units because their abilities has a scaling effect based on the amount of times they cast. Now you might be wondering, can I use the Golden Remover to get the perfect Thieves' Glove setup? And the answer here is yes and no. In a normal setup this will not work because the Thief outcome will be the same for every unit. The only way to break this restriction is to add the Augment Salvage Bin and break apart the Thieves' Gloves into components. Every time you rebuild the item, it will give you a new outcome. Once you have the outcome that you want, you can now simply use the Golden Remover and transfer it to the unit of your choice. Next up, let's take a look at the Team Planner because this feature has constantly become more useful. It is a great tool to mark your units in your shop and help you to theory craft during your game to think about the units that you want to add to your comp. What a lot of players don't know yet is that Riot added a great quality of life feature with the snapshot system. If you click on the button, then the game will automatically add all of your units that are currently standing on your board to the Team Planner. This means you don't have to waste your time looking for the units that you're already playing and can focus on adding the ones that you're still missing. Honestly, the only thing it is missing at this point is a subscribe button. Then it would truly be perfect. Another great use for the team builder is to figure out your ink shadow items. One of the problems with ink shadows is that the item selection is different for every single player. If you end up checking out an ink shadow unit of a different player, then you will only see the items that he can receive. But this does not apply to you. The easiest solution solution is simply to add a random ink shadow unit to the team planner, hover over the trait, and then you can see which items you can receive during your game. Aside from these mechanics, you can also min-max a lot with the help of different items. For example, Nar has a stacking mechanic that is quite similar to Titan's Resolve, going all the way up to 50 stacks. I already showcased in a previous Mythbuster video that Dev's Defiance has a great interaction with these types of stacking mechanics. The item will apply a lot of true damage ticks to the holder, and since they count as an instance of damage, it will help you to max out the Titans or the Nar stacks much faster. 50 stacks is not easy to reach, but Nar can truly become a monster if you ever get there, and he is one of the more fun reroll combs that you can try out. Another great item that you don't want to sleep on is Gunblade in combination with the Umbral trait. This is because Umbral units receive an execute effect if they stand on an Umbral hex at the start of combat. The reason this is so useful is because you can often heal yourself for a significant amount if you get the proc on high HP frontliners. This strategy is quite similar to giving a Gunblade to ace units in set 8, where you would even sometimes prioritize it on Samira just to help keep your frontline alive. But this is not the only mechanic from an old set that we get to use again. Back in set 7 with Shimmer items and in set 10 with Superfan, every time there is a trait that grants special items, we can use them to help put the right items on the right units. In set 11, if we activate the Ink Shadow trait, we receive a random tattoo. Whenever we want to upgrade a unit, we can simply put one of the copies on the board and give it the Ink Shadow item. Units on the board will get prioritized, so if you upgrade a unit to 2-star or 3-star, then the item on the board will 100% get prioritized. Afterwards, we can simply bench the unit or just remove the Ink Shadow trait, and now we have an empty item slot that we can utilize. The next one is a bit more of a meme, but there is a new augment called Mind Over Matter that grants your target dummies more HP based on the total amount of AP from your Arcanist units. Recently, I learned that the HP is updated live, so if you build items like Archangel, then the dummy will receive more HP over the course of the fight. With the correct setup, you can potentially create some monster dummies, and this is definitely a for fun comp that I have to try at least once. For this video, I also want to briefly talk about positioning. Technically, this is a complicated topic because there is no limit to how much you can min-max your positioning, but there are some units where you have to be a bit careful. For example, Udyr's ability works more or less the same as a Radiant Edge of Night, which means he will become untargetable and then heal himself back to full. While this is a very useful mechanic, it can also be quite dangerous because Udyr is dropping his aggro. You never want Udyr on the edge of your front line. This is because units in this position often take a lot of damage from the corner, and if the opponent is running a strong melee carry, then it can often result with the enemy melee units pathing into your backline and gaining access to your carry. Just make sure that there are other units that can take over the aggro while Udyr is healing himself, or just position him in a way where he doesn't take aggro at the start of the fight. I already talked a lot about Hwai and his artist trait, but his trait still has a lot more to give. For example, if you have the Augment Twin Terror and you are playing tier 1 reroll, then you should consider taking him from either the carousel or pick him up if he shows up in your shop. He is capable of creating a new copy of a tier 1 unit every single round. This means for one fight, you can take out the 2-star copy from Twin Terror, put this unit on the special bench slot, and get a new copy at the start of the next round. Afterwards, you just go back to your old setup, but now you get to keep creating new copies until you end up with 2 3-star units for your late game board. I'm not sure how easy it will be to pull the strategy off, because it can be quite difficult to find him if you're focusing on low tier units first. But it is something to keep in mind if you see him in the carousel. I have no doubts that I will make a video like this in the future again, because set 11 has so many interactions that allow you as the player to feel creative in your approach. What is your favorite min-max that I haven't mentioned yet? Let me know in the comments. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.